Hey guys, Resurrector here again. It's been a while since the last video and I've been hard at work making a lot of improvements around this game. And what you see here is an environment I built to test the stealth systems in the game. Now in the version you're looking at here I've disabled the audio identification so the player can only be spotted by being seen. This is actually from a few weeks ago. And since then I've been doing a lot of work on a new prologue chapter to the game, which I'm hoping to release sooner than the rest of the game, as I thought it would be nice to get something out there and useful to get some feedback on it. So we'll see when that turns up, but I'm hoping for it to come out in the next, say, 5 or 6 months. I think that would be pretty good. Other commitments willing, as I'm now signed up to give a talk at Develop in Brighton, and that's using up a fair amount of time investigating my talk and what I'm going to give. So, in this particular demo section, the lights affect how easily you can be spotted, and the guards have a fairly narrow depth of view. Now, subsequent to this, I put in all the visual decorators for what kind of armor they're wearing and how it affects their perception. At this point they're all being treated like they're covered in armor, but the armor isn't actually visually identified, which is why the enemy you just saw appears completely blind, and despite you being within a meter of him, he does not seem to notice you. This is because that guard can only really see directly forward. His peripheral vision is almost completely gone. And I thought it would also be nice to add a hearing adjustment to the helmets as well. So if you're wearing a big padded helmet, you can't hear as well. Now, I think what will end up happening is that I'll make a load of different modifiers and then tune a few of them out, because it will create too varied a set of enemies. As you can see with this guy, unlike the first guy we went past, he has a random patrol path, much like the alien in Alien Isolation. So this is one of the feelings which I created during the demo, which I have a video on this channel, which I really liked because it preserves the sense of improvisation even in environments that you've already been in. So I'm going to experiment with more procedural generation for like challenge modes or something like that, but within the main game, which is quite structured, I think this gives a similar sense, and it means that you're always weighing up whether to take the risk or not, rather than knowing you can make the move. Not demonstrated here, but in later builds will be more of an ability to influence the enemies. So it's much harder to ghost through an environment because you can't predict them. But if you were to be willing to influence them by like knocking them out or throwing things at them, then it becomes more like a traditional stealth game, because you're able to know what the opponent will do. Now, in addition to that, I think I'll add some nasty AI subroutines for when it gets distracted and the like. Here you see some clipping, still working with how to make the stance changes sort of function smoothly. So when an object gets thrown, they'll search for various places where the object could be thrown from. I'm still working on this to make it not too mean. So there I'm spotted, and it's registering me being spotted, but the guard continues to go on its patrol path. In this test environment I didn't put in any of the chasing behaviour, because I thought, why bother? In this environment I didn't put in any of the chasing behaviour, as I wanted to just get a sense of how easy it was to stealth through. And I think the sort of story I worked out for this is kind of like a test environment for you to see if you can get to the other side without being spotted, and at the very end you will know if you've been spotted or not. And I'll explain that a little bit later. So the environments look fairly bare here. I added some more detail to them, but since it's a test environment, I'm really just testing out various ways to fill up the space. So each of these objects are sort of blueprinted, instanced combinations of items, which I think I'll add the ability to pick up props from them. This is probably the most complete of the rooms down here. So we see we've got like nice things going on the floor, nice things going on the roof. You don't really see much of it because I walk straight through it. And the lighting's a slightly different colour. I think that's more what I'll end up with as the paler light casts a more eerie shadow. That's warm. You can see the guards have dynamic lights on them. That's something I'll have to tune in and out depending, because that seems to take a massive performance hit when I'm around foliage. But here, that's the kind of level of darkness I'll be looking at. I'll disable the automatic eye adaptation for most of the actual game, but as I say, I'm just testing various things, so it's convenient for me to leave it in. So we're approaching the final corridor, so this has a guard which goes on a set patrol path, because there's only one or two places to actually hide from him, so making him be able to double back would actually make it virtually impossible to get away from him, and definitely very frustrating. So one of the ideas is open environments guards, you don't know where they're going to go, whereas corridors like this, then they'll probably proceed along the set patrol path. I found in Alien Isolation one of the interesting things was having an AI that you didn't know where it was going to go on a corridor, but it could be frustrating, but it was also kind of fun. So I think it would be something to put in for enemies which you're meant to be afraid of rather than just your average dude. So here you step on this trigger, and then if you have been spotted, it opens the door at the bottom and you have to do the thing again. Gotta be quick though. And if you haven't been spotted, it'll open the door at the top and you'll proceed to the next challenge. So this is my attempt at circular level design. So now we're up on the second floor. So the first floor is meant to demonstrate just stealthing around guards. This one allows you to play around with the items a little bit more. So here we can distract him. It's a room perfectly placed for him to be distracted in, and then enough objects so that he doesn't spot you immediately when you move behind him. It also tests out another version of the light system I'm using, which is binary. Instead of the lights making you slightly more visible, in this system, if you're in the dark, you're invisible, and if you're in the light, you're totally visible, so they'll spot you from any distance. So we can see I've tried to do a little bit to make the lights higher contrast to sort of signal that. There'll be a meter or a HUD, probably. I do like the idea of HUDless design, so we'll see how I'm going to do that. Here you can see there's a little more work on the ambience, got some of that floating dust going to make it all appear like a more involved sense of space. Yeah, as you can see, he can't hear you, so you can just move behind him. And these guys have got lanterns rather than torches, so they have a more directional light capability rather than the sort of sphere. Now I'm working on the pickup system. This one's a bit odd at the moment. That should work. There we go. I think I'll make the highlight a little more subtle, as I think it sort of slightly breaks immersion, having it like that. But it's good enough to actually highlight it at the moment. Yeah. For some strange reason, when I was crouching, it wouldn't close the door. I think this corridor, I mean the lighting's a bit screwed up, but I think that corridor has a nice amount of detail, something I'd be happy with in the final game, or at least the final prologue chapter. Similar to this one as well, I think it has a nice involved sense of space. The detail on the ground is broken up by the straw, the ambient dust helps add depth to the scene, the supports on top give the ceiling a bit more texture, and it's got enough varied objects in here to like break line of sight but not appear too uniform. In addition to this, I'll be adding various types of pickups and interactables, so you can only throw certain objects, you only carry so many, so you can pick more up from from here. You can also search these objects in case you're looking for something. So the next trial environment would probably be something like this, but with a treasure hunt, so you're constantly trying to avoid the opposition while check all the spaces for an object. And I think that would give more than enough gameplay for a space like this. And anyway, this kind of concludes the stealth gameplay video. And I'll be back in a few days with a demonstration of one of the new environments I've created. Thanks everybody.